In the story of ancient Rome, few institutions shaped its destiny as profoundly as the Roman army. Over centuries, this force transformed from a makeshift citizen militia into a professional, standing military machine, arguably the most formidable of the ancient world. This evolution mirrored Rome's own journey as the city-state grew into a sprawling empire. The organization and structure of the Roman army were not merely products of necessity, but careful innovations that enabled Rome to conquer, integrate, and rule a diverse array of peoples across continents. At the heart of Roman military power was a rigid, hierarchical command system. The backbone of the army was the legion, a unit of about 5,000 to 6,000 men during the imperial period, composed entirely of Roman citizens. Each legion was led by a legate, the legatus legionis, usually a senator entrusted with supreme authority over his command. He was supported by a senior military tribune from the senatorial class and 5 additional tribunes of equestrian rank who served as staff officers. These men offered counsel, relayed orders, and often represented the future leadership of Rome, using their military experience as a stepping stone in public life. Within the legion, professional soldiers managed the day-to-day realities of command and discipline. The camp prefect, or praefectus castorum, was the most experienced officer, often a veteran who had risen through the ranks. He oversaw logistics, training, and could command the legion in the legate's absence. Yet it was the centurions, 60 in a full-strength legion, who truly formed the army's backbone. These professional officers led centuries of 80 men each, enforcing discipline with a famously iron hand. Their deputies, the options, along with the tesserari and signifari, responsible for guard duties and carrying the unit's standards, ensured that every century operated with clockwork precision. The legion itself was a marvel of organization. After the Marian reforms of 107 before the Common Era, it was divided into 10 cohorts, each a substantial fighting unit in its own right. The first cohort was the most prestigious, made up of 5 double-strength sentries and entrusted with the legion's standard and treasury. The remaining cohorts each contained 6 sentries of 80 men. Within these sentries, soldiers lived and fought in groups called contubernia tent parties of 8 men who ate and camped together, forming the smallest and most intimate team in the Roman military. While the legions provided Rome's heavy infantry, their iconic rectangular shields and short swords forming the core of any battle line, they were not alone on the field. Cavalry squadrons and specialized troops, archers, slingers, and engineers augmented the legions, providing flexibility and technical skills essential in both battle and siege. Equally significant were the auxiliaries, the auxilia. These non-citizen soldiers, recruited from the provinces, brought a wide array of skills, expert horsemen, agile skirmishers, and specialists from every corner of the empire. Auxiliaries served for 25 years, a considerable stretch, but upon discharge, they received Roman citizenship as well as a diploma, a bronze certificate of their service. By the 2nd century Anno Domini, auxiliaries often outnumbered the legionaries themselves, a testament to Rome's ability to integrate conquered peoples into her military machine. Recruitment into the Roman army evolved as dramatically as its structure. In the early Republic, service was the duty of property-owning citizens, summoned each year for the season's campaigns. This system, however, could not keep pace with Rome's growing ambitions. The pivotal reforms of Gaius Marius in the late 2nd century before Christ opened the ranks to all citizens, regardless of wealth, and introduced standardized equipment. The army became a profession, not a temporary obligation. Under Augustus, Rome established a truly permanent standing force, 28 legions, each 1,000 strong, supported by a special military treasury to fund soldiers' pay and retirement bonuses. Service was long and demanding. Legionaries signed on for 20 years, auxiliaries for 25. Discipline was uncompromising and training relentless. New recruits underwent months of systematic instruction. 4 months of basic training were typical, where they learned weapons handling, formation drills, and the famed Roman march, covering up to 30 kilometers a day in full armor. Centurions and specialized trainers called campidoctors oversaw these routines, ensuring that every man could hold the line, no matter the hardship or the foe. Regular inspections and large-scale exercises kept every unit sharp and ready. The discipline for which Rome's soldiers were renowned was enforced by the centurions, whose authority was absolute within their centuries. Punishments could be severe, but the rewards were equally significant. Upon discharge, legionaries could expect land grants or cash bonuses. After Augustus, 3,000 denarii was a typical payout for a veteran. This promise of future security, combined with the prestige of military service, made the army a vehicle for social mobility. For many, it was a ticket to a better life, and for provincial recruits, a path to Roman citizenship and the privileges that came with it. Beyond its battlefield victories, the Roman army was an agent of Romanization. Soldiers stationed in distant provinces carried Roman customs, language, and law wherever they went. The army's camps often became the seeds of new towns, spreading Roman influence deep into the provinces. Military leaders themselves frequently shaped the course of Roman politics. Commanding armies gave men like Julius Caesar and Augustus the power to sway or even seize the state itself. The Roman army's organization, then, was much more than a matter of military efficiency. Its strict hierarchy, rigorous training, blend of citizen and non-citizen forces, and the promise of tangible rewards created a disciplined, adaptable, and loyal force. This system enabled Rome not only to win battles, but to build and hold an empire. While many details, such as the intricate workings of logistics or the late empire's changes to army structure, remain complex or less fully preserved in the record, the foundations of Roman military power remain clear: discipline, adaptability, and a genius for organization. These qualities allowed Rome's legions to write their story across centuries and continents, forging an enduring legacy of military supremacy. The story of Roman military dominance is less about brute force and more about the subtle interplay of strategy, innovation, and constant adaptation. As the Republic grew into an empire, Rome's soldiers did not simply march from one victory to the next. Instead, they learned, adjusted, and refined their art of war in response to every new threat and challenge. The genius of Roman warfare lies in this remarkable adaptability, a willingness to discard what no longer served and to embrace new tactics, formations, and technologies as circumstances demanded. In the earliest days, Roman soldiers fought much like their Greek neighbors, standing shoulder to shoulder in the rigid phalanx. While effective on flat plains, this formation soon revealed its limitations amid the hills and forests of Italy. The Romans responded by adopting the manipular system, breaking their forces into smaller, more flexible units called maniples. This shift, solidified in the early 3rd century before the Common Era, allowed Roman armies to maneuver across rough terrain and counter the unpredictable tactics of enemies such as the Samnites. Each line of soldiers in the classic triplex acies hastati in front, followed by principes and the veteran triarii, could rotate in and out of combat, keeping the line fresh and maintaining constant pressure on the enemy. This was more than a tactical adjustment. It marked a philosophical commitment to flexibility, resilience, and depth. As Rome's ambitions expanded and its enemies became more varied, its military structure evolved once again. The Marian reforms of 107 before the Common Era, initiated by Gaius Marius, transformed the army into a truly professional force. The cohort replaced the maniple as the basic tactical unit. With around 480 men each, 10 cohorts formed a legion, providing both the mass for pitched battles and the flexibility for independent action. This new structure responded to the demands of empire: rapid deployment, coordinated maneuvers, and the ability to operate effectively across the forests of Germania, the mountains of Spain, or the deserts of Syria. Roman commanders could now divide their forces into smaller, self-sufficient groups capable of responding to local threats without waiting for orders from above. In this post-Marian legion, a full-strength legion was divided into 60 centuries, each commanded by a centurion, for a total of 60 centurions. On the battlefield, Roman formations were not just about appearance or discipline, they were tools of control and psychological dominance. The triplex acies allowed for the rotation of fresh troops and the absorption of shock, while the cohort system enabled units to respond independently if the line wavered or the enemy broke through. The famed testudo or tortoise formation showcased Roman ingenuity in the face of missile fire, especially during sieges. Soldiers locked their shields overhead and around their sides, creating a nearly impenetrable shell. While this formation slowed their advance, it protected them from arrows, slings, and even stones hurled by defenders atop city walls. Roman tactical brilliance extended well beyond the open field. Siege warfare became a Roman specialty, combining engineering skill and psychological pressure. When confronted with walled cities, and there were many, Roman armies constructed elaborate siege works. Artillery such as ballistae, onagers, and scorpios battered walls and defenders, while massive towers and ramps brought attackers face to face with the enemy above. Circumvallation and contravallation, building walls both to contain the besieged and to protect the besiegers from outside relief, became standard practice. Yet, even with all this technology, Roman commanders understood that morale and psychological warfare were often decisive. The mere sight of Roman fortifications rising relentlessly around a city could sap the will to resist, making surrender more likely than a final, desperate defense. This fusion of engineering and intimidation was perhaps most famously displayed by Julius Caesar at Alesia in 52 before the Common Era, though the details of that battle extend beyond our immediate focus. What matters is that the Roman approach to siegecraft was comprehensive: starve the enemy, batter their defenses, and break their spirit. Technology and morale, in Roman eyes, were two sides of the same coin, each enhancing the other. Behind these tactical innovations lay a foundation of discipline and rigorous training. Roman soldiers did not simply learn to fight, they were drilled to march, build, and obey without question. Orders were expected to be followed instantly, allowing for the split-second coordination of complex maneuvers. Over time, the command structure also evolved. In the Republic, consuls and proconsuls led armies, but as the empire matured, legates and professional officers assumed command, bringing greater consistency and expertise to the battlefield. Flexibility in command was as important as flexibility in formation. Decentralized, purpose-driven leadership allowed Roman forces to react swiftly to changing circumstances. The ability to tailor tactics to the environment and enemy was perhaps Rome's greatest strength. In open fields, Roman legions advanced in ordered lines. In forests or mountains, they broke into smaller units, using the terrain to their advantage. Against cavalry-heavy foes, they adapted their formations and even their weaponry. Throughout, the emphasis was always on discipline, order, and the relentless application of force, never more than was necessary, but always enough to achieve the objective. It is important to acknowledge the limits of our sources. While the role of auxiliaries, non-citizen troops from Rome's provinces, is occasionally mentioned, the specifics of their tactical integration remain obscure. Similarly, the evolution of Roman tactics in the later empire, the impact of logistics and supply, and the details of naval operations are not fully addressed here. What is clear, however, is that the Roman army's combination of adaptability, discipline, and organizational innovation was unmatched in the ancient world. Their willingness to learn from both success and failure forged a military machine capable of conquering and holding a vast and diverse empire. In the art of Roman warfare, there was no single secret, no magic formula. Instead, Rome's soldiers and commanders mastered the art of adaptation, blending old and new, brute force and subtlety, technology and psychology. It was this ever-evolving approach, shaped by experience, necessity, and relentless discipline, that made the Roman army not just a force to be reckoned with, but the very engine of empire. The shadow cast by the Roman army stretches far beyond the centuries of its supremacy, reaching deep into the fabric of Western military tradition and statecraft. As Rome's legions faded from the world stage, their methods, organization, and spirit took on a life of their own, shaping not only the armies that followed, but also the very concept of organized power. This enduring legacy, forged through countless campaigns and relentless innovation, remains visible in the structure and ethos of modern armed forces and in the broader contours of Western civilization. At the heart of this legacy lies the Roman genius for military organization, a model so robust and adaptable that it became the template for centuries to come. The legion, Rome's signature formation, did more than conquer territory. It established a blueprint for constructing, maintaining, and commanding large armies. The division of legions into cohorts, and further into centuries, each led by its own officers, introduced a clarity of command and responsibility that echoes in today's military hierarchies. The Roman centurion, legatus, and primus pilus are more than dusty Latin titles. They represent the first articulation of roles and ranks that would, in time, be mirrored by captains, colonels, and sergeants in later Western armies. The army's transformation under the Marian reforms, opening its ranks to all classes, standardizing equipment, and making soldiering a profession, set the stage for the emergence of the modern standing army, a force not bound by the cycles of agriculture or the whims of citizen soldiers, but trained, disciplined, and always prepared. Rome's mastery extended well beyond the battlefield. Its logistical achievements were, in many ways, as impressive as its tactical prowess. The Romans understood that wars are not won by swords alone, but by the steady flow of supplies, reinforcements, and information. Their vast network of roads, over 250,000 miles, ran like arteries through the empire, enabling legions to march at a pace and scale previously unimaginable. These roads, meticulously engineered and maintained, allowed for the rapid deployment of troops and the efficient movement of goods, messages, and, crucially, the myriad supplies that kept armies in the field. The state-run cursus publicus, with its system of warehouses and depots, stands as an early forerunner of the modern military supply chain, illustrating a keen awareness of the importance of logistics in sustaining power and projecting force over great distances. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the Roman army was its ability to adapt and absorb. Roman commanders did not adhere rigidly to tradition. Instead, they observed, learned, and incorporated effective practices from the peoples they encountered. The shift from the manipular system to cohort-based formations, the willingness to employ auxiliary troops skilled in archery, cavalry, or engineering, and the constant refinement of tactics to meet new challenges, all speak to a culture that prized flexibility and practical results. This spirit of adaptation, of learning from the enemy and turning those lessons into strengths, remains a foundational principle of military thought. The impact of the Roman army was not confined to the sphere of war. The army served as a crucible of Romanization, offering a path to citizenship for non-Romans who served as auxiliaries, and in doing so, knitting together a diverse empire through shared service and reward. The prospect of citizenship after 20 or 25 years of service gave soldiers a powerful stake in the stability and success of the empire, fostering loyalty that transcended local origins. This practice finds echoes in modern policies that grant citizenship or special privileges to those who serve in the armed forces, reinforcing the army's role as both defender and unifier of the state. Rome's soldiers were more than warriors. They were builders, administrators, and ambassadors of Roman culture. Where the legions camped, towns often grew. Their fortifications became the seeds of urban development, their presence brought security, and their discipline set standards for governance. The army's influence extended into the political arena, as military command became a pathway to power, and as the efficiency and order of the legion came to symbolize the ideals not just of the army, but of Roman civilization itself. While this legacy is most visible in the armies of Europe and the West, it is not without its limits. The sources are largely silent on the direct influence of Roman military practice on non-Western systems, and they caution that while many military terms are derived from Latin, the actual practices have often evolved along independent lines. Nor do we find detailed evidence in these accounts of specific battles or armies in later history explicitly modeling themselves on Rome. The technological aspects of Rome's military, its siege engines and artillery, are likewise less explored in the available research, leaving some aspects of its influence open to interpretation. Nevertheless, the broad consensus among historians is clear. The Roman army's emphasis on discipline, hierarchy, organization, and adaptability set standards that would echo through the ages. Its logistical feats demonstrated the centrality of infrastructure to power. Its integration of diverse peoples through military service foreshadowed the inclusive policies of later states, and its central role in politics and governance helped define the relationship between armed force and authority in Western tradition. To trace the legacy of the Roman army is, in many ways, to trace the evolution of the West itself. From the roads that still shape European landscapes to the ranks and rituals of modern military life, to the enduring ideal of the soldier as citizen and builder, the imprint of Rome endures, a testament to the lasting power of organization, discipline, and the willingness to adapt. The Roman army's story is not just one of conquest, but of the creation of systems and ideas that would outlive the empire itself, shaping the world in ways its architects could scarcely have imagined.